Hello everyone, it's Echo. I hope you're having a good day, as am I. I am making this video today because I want to talk about Springtrap's release into Dead by Daylight. Mainly because, I've been seeing a lot of, shit talking about it recently. Like, a lot of people are upset about it, and which is weird because this is, the most hyped killer to ever be added to the game. So, I was a little confused at first, and then I started reading into it. So, I want to talk about a few things today. I want to talk about Springtraps Power as a whole, not just the fire axe, the entirety of the power. I want to talk about the bugs that are with that power, and I want to talk about the map that came with Springtrap. The map I'm less worried about because the map is not something you're paying for. The outrage on it is another thing, but before we even get to the map is not something that you're paying for. If you're giving behavior money, you're giving it for the killer. So I'm going to focus mainly on the killer, the bugs with it, and the power in general, and then I'll talk a little bit about the map, and that'll be it. So, I don't have a script, by the way, so if I sound a little overplaced, that's why. So, to start, the power. I like Springtraps Power for two reasons. Well, hang on. Before I discuss why I like it, maybe I should discuss why people are hating on it. People are hating on Springtraps Power because they think, or they're calling it a worse version of Huntress's power with Unryo teleports, which is not exactly how I see it, and it's not exactly how quite a few other people see it. So, first of all, Springtrap is a little bit of a ranged killer. He's not a super rangy killer because the axe has a significant amount of weight to it, so you can't throw it super far. The thing that I've been seeing a lot is people comparing the playstyles between Springtrap and Huntress and saying they're the same. I don't think they are. Why? Well, here's why. Springtrap, we're going to take a loop, right? Just a standard loop tile, not like anything too strong, anything too weak, just your normal loop. When you're playing Springtrap, the way you play around that loop is, in the beginning, a bit like Huntress, yes, you raise your axe and you're threatening that axe. However, unlike Huntress, where you raise your axe, you throw it, and if you miss, you raise another one. If you hit, then you raise another one, and you threaten it again, and threaten the down that time. Springtrap is, I think, completely different. With Springtrap, if you miss, depending on your add-ons, it plays differently. That's another thing that I'm going to talk about when I talk about his power, is the add-ons. Depending on what add-ons you have, you play differently. If you raise your axe, you miss, and you don't have any add-ons that make it fine if you miss, then you kind of just play like an M1 killer. And I agree, that's a little mid. That part's a little mid. I grant you. However, if you throw your axe and you hit, you are no longer threatening that axe, you are now threatening to catch up, which around loops is something every killer kind of does. However, you have a larger range to catch up, because I'm not positive on this, but from what I've seen, it feels like the axe's grab range is a small bit larger than your lunge distance, like the distance you can lunge as killer. So you're now threatening to catch up and grab that axe and immediately put someone into a grab state. Depending on your add-ons, you are threatening that loop even harder because you have things like the Celebrate poster, or not Foxy's Hook, just specifically the Celebrate poster, which makes you and your target significantly faster. However, with Killer, I think the haste is significantly more noticeable, because survivors are ever so slightly slower than the Killer. I know it isn't immediately noticeable, but this should kind of be a given to anyone who's played Survivor and Killer. Survivors are not significantly, but they're ever so slightly slower than the Killer. So having this poster give a flat pace to both of them, stop interrupting me. Giving a flat pace to both of them is kind of ridiculous, because the Killer's gonna get much more value out of that than the Survivor. The vaults, the Survivor gets. The vaults are to the Survivor. The Killer, if they vault faster, the killer can't catch up with that. However, if they're just holding W, this is a lethal add-on. So now you're threatening loops even harder. And that's part of why I don't think the axe is exactly similar to Huntress. Because if you hit Huntress's axe, you get an injury. And that's it. The Springtrap's axe gives you significantly more for hitting your axe. And you only get one of them. Now, the security doors. The other part of Springtraps Power. I think that they are not exactly like Unrio's. Firstly, to teleport, you need to go to a security door. That is required. Secondly, it's not instant. Thirdly, you can tell. I'm not sure if you can tell with Unrio, because I haven't fought Unrio a lot. However, with Springtrap, you can tell he's coming through the security doors if the little panel flickers. On top of that, there are other add-ons, like Bonnie's guitar strings, which gives you information for going through those doors, which is insanely strong. And I would be surprised if that doesn't get nerfed a little bit, because it's basically surveillance as a perk. And I'm pretty sure there are other perks that do this gen monitoring, but it's basically all of those just as an add-on, and I think it's very strong. So, the doors aren't exactly like Unrio's. He has to go to one, you can tell when he's coming, and quite frankly, it's not as instant as Unrio's either. Like, Unrio, you don't get a terror radius because she's... No, you do get a terror radius, actually, because she re-manifests. So on top of that, he also gets undetectable when he goes through doors, and he keeps it for a little bit of time, which is very different. And why is it very different? Well, because it kind of makes it the same, your reaction-wise, if you see the panel flicker. However, it punishes those who aren't observing. If you aren't looking at a door, and you're not paying attention to your nearest door, or you can't. Okay, if you can't, that's one thing. But if you have one and you can look at it, it punishes you for not looking at the door. Where on Rio, if she goes through a TV, you immediately know she's there. You get a condemned stack, and you immediately hear her terror radius. So, it's not exactly the same. The cameras, I can understand the outrage a little bit. Because there's not really a reason to use them. That's fine, I guess. There isn't really a reason for survivors to use cameras or the doors, because you are kind of trolling if you do. Because, first of all, you don't know where Springtrap is. Second of all, the benefit you get from using cameras is you show him to your teammates, which isn't exactly legendary. I don't think it's that big of a deal, though. The cameras, I think, are a cute feature, but I don't think they're really worth disregarding the entire killer over. And when it comes to the concept of survivors using doors, I don't think they totally have no reason for it, to be honest with you. If you play it correctly, and you know he's not going through a door right now, or you know he's chasing someone, for example, and you need to be somewhere on the other side of the map, I think the power could be insanely good for survivors, if they learn how to use it correctly. Now, talking about survivors going through doors, lots of people I've seen are complaining about the fact that the door jump scare doesn't feel like something that's all that grand or great. It doesn't feel, good, and it barely happens. I don't think that the door jump scare was ever meant to be this grand thing that people are bitching that it isn't. So, if you don't know, if you go through a door and Springtrap goes through a door and you meet in the security room, he jump scares you, immediately puts you into the grab state. I'm pretty sure that this only exists because you need a solution to the idea of the problem that what happens if a survivor and the killer both go through the doors. That is a problem you introduce when you introduce the idea of survivors being able to traverse the doors. So you need to solve this before, before anything bad happens and people start complaining about that. So I don't think the door jump scare was ever meant to be this grandiose thing that people are saying it should have been. I think it was just meant to solve that problem, and I don't think it's worth all the salt over. Final point, I think his power is good. I don't know why people are complaining about it. The bugs, however, let's get to the bugs. The bugs are annoying. I know, kind of, that there's more than just the one I'm about to talk about, but I'm going to specifically be talking about the audio bug that happens when you traverse the doors, and I think this is patched on PC, or at least it should have been. No, I'm not going to read it. I'm pretty sure it was patched on PC. When you use the CCTV cameras or the security doors, your audio breaks. And by breaks, I mean the directional audio doesn't work correctly anymore. Everything that's on your left is now on your right, and some sounds that should be coming from the same direction are coming from two different directions for no reason. And I agree that that is a very annoying bug. And I agree that the killer should not have released with that bug. However, calling the entire chapter complete dog shit over that singular bug, I think, is overkill. Simple as that. I agree, it's a bad bug. It should have been rectified in QA. But it didn't, it slipped through the cracks, and I'm pretty sure they were pretty aptly timed in releasing a hotfix for it, at least on PC. I saw something about it recently on a hotfix that they allegedly had fixed the bug on PC, and so far I have not noticed it again since I've seen it. And that's just all I have to say about the bugs. I agree it's annoying, it shouldn't have released like that, but they're fixing it. Finally, the map. Interesting thing about the map. The map is a very interesting thing. Lots of people are saying it's just Greenville Square all over again, and that there's nothing innovative about it, or interesting about it. I don't like this thought process personally. I agree, the map is very similar to Greenville Square. I don't think it's a copy of it whatsoever, because both the inside and outside of the map are not identical. I think it uses a lot of the same loops, which is one thing, because it's in the same realm. And I know lots of people are going to be angry about this, however, I'm not, because I actually do game development. Reusing things that are already in your game, instead of remaking them again, is always a good thing. Almost always a good thing. Not like 100% of the time, but 99% of the time, it's good. Because it saves on load times, and it saves on game size, which are two of the biggest things that people bitch about. And DBD already does not have a small game footprint, as far as I'm aware. Let's see. Let's look together, shall we? Properties. DBD is 50 gigabytes, almost 51 gigabytes. That is not small by any means. Reusing assets that already exist in the game is much better than remaking them from scratch. And the reason why I think that this is more than excusable is because the map is in its own realm. Or, not in its own realm. Sorry, I forgot the not there. The map is in the Withered Isle, which is a realm that exists, that has its own lore as to why it's there, and quite frankly, I think they did write some lore for it if you read it. The Withered Isle. I'm not going to recount this because I'm just talking about Springtrap. I think that Freddy Fazbear's pizza fits more than fine inside Withered Isle. So, quite frankly, I'm not surprised that they're using the same loops and the same build style for the map. The actual pizzeria itself, I think, is more than unique enough on its own to warrant it not being called the same as Greenville Square. And I, quite frankly, do not see why people are calling it the same. Aside from, oh no, the loops are the same asset. Oh, boo-hoo. They're saving on file size, and that is 100% something a dev studio should be doing. Unless you want to be like COD, where every single game is like 200 gigs, and you can't have more than 3 games installed at a time. You know, those are your two options. Anyways, final thoughts. I like this chapter wholeheartedly. I think it has some bugs, and by some bugs, I just mean the audio bug, that need to be fixed. However, they seem to be fixing them, so I'm not going to complain about it. And I don't see why people are. I think the power is more than fine. I don't think it's an exact copy of anyone. I do agree that it's not completely original. Like, the idea isn't wholeheartedly original, but it's original enough, in my opinion. And that same goes for the... Anyways, that's about all I have to say. If you disagree, say so in the comments. Maybe I'll make a part 2 to this. I don't plan on it, but if enough people say something about it, maybe I will. That's about it. See ya.